The assumption of Mary. Is the assumption of Mary mentioned in the Bible? That's a good question, isn't it? So I'll remind you of something before we try to answer this question. John 21, verse 24. There were many other things that Jesus did. If all were written down, the world itself, I suppose, would not hold all the books that would have to be written. So not everything is written down in the Bible. So anyway, I want to talk with the help of God about assumption, but there's something else on my mind first. And again, excuse me going off someplace. Julian of Norwich. I may have the dates wrong, and what's 1,000 years between friends anyway? She lived in the 12th century, I think, and she was what they call an anchorite. She lived in a lean-to attached to a church in Norwich. That would be in England. And a lean-to would probably be much smaller than the office that I have here. And it was the time of the Black Plague. There was, the Black Plague was spread by rats. The ships would come from different parts of the world, and you know, the rats on the ship would sometimes come down the ropes that secured the ships to the land and spread the plague all over Europe. And there's records of 50 million people dying. There's records of that the priest who anointed people in the morning time who had the plague was buried in a mass grave that very evening. And then there's also stories coming down about children, like they were born into the Black Plague and knew nothing but the Black Plague, so it wasn't unusual for them. But they played in the streets like children do, and was safer back then, apparently, the streets. And holding hands, they used to sing this song, ring around the rosies, pocket full of posies, ashes, ashes, we all fall down. Now, what's all that about? Well, the Black Plague left rosette sores on people's faces and bodies. So ring around the rosies. When you got these sores on your face, you're going to die soon. Pocket full of posies. They used to, so I heard, they used to keep posies in their pockets, flowers, to keep away the smell. Then ashes, ashes, we all fall down. Again, 50 million died in one particular plague. Now into this comes this Julian of Norwich, again, an anchorite. She has some type of a vow of stability or something of that nature. And she prayed in her cell. And she had a little window about this size where people came and would speak with her or would ask her prayers or look for consolation. And she had a crucifix in her cell. And this she recorded herself. This happened to her. Christ spoke to her from the cross. And in the dialogue between them, she asked, why is there suffering? Like, why is there death? And Jesus answered from the cross. He said, sin is necessary. Unnecessary sin of Adam that brought about the new Adam. Sin is necessary. Death, suffering is necessary. But all shall be well, and all shall be well, and all shall be well. I find that kind of so helpful in a way. Here we are living at the end of the ages, and sin is there every place still, and suffering is present. every place in the world. And yet we're told, but all shall be well, and all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well. Okay. It was just on my mind to say it again. So why should you suffer, right? The assumption. Holy Mother Church from the beginning has taught us about the Assumption of Mary. And there's some stories coming down to us that the apostles who were spread across the world, whether in India, Italy, Spain, or wherever, preaching about Jesus, came back to Jerusalem for her funeral. We don't know. Obviously, Judas wasn't there. So the Assumption of Mary. And then Holy Mother Church says that Mary was assumed, body and soul, into heaven. Now, it might help you if I showed you a couple of assumptions in the Bible. Because some of you say out there, if it's not in the Bible, I won't believe in it. So the first, to my mind, magnificent assumption in the Bible is here in Genesis. It's chapter 5, and it's verse 21. There's that number again, 21. It talks about a man named Enoch. When Jared was 162 years old, he became the father of Enoch. That's my man Enoch. After the birth of Enoch, Jared, his father, lived for 800 years, and he became the father of sons and daughters. In all, Jared lived for 962 years, then he died. Any objections so far? Now, my man Enoch, Jared's son, when Enoch was 65 years old, he became the father of Methuselah. Now watch this here, please. Enoch walked with God. What does that mean? Enoch walked with God. Do you walk with God? Do I walk with God? Enoch walked with God. After the birth of Methuselah, he lived for 300 years, and he became the father of sons and daughters. In all, Enoch lived for 365 years. You notice the number of days in a solar year? Enoch walked with God, then he vanished because God took him. Now, there it is. Do not run away from it. Assumption mentioned in the Bible. Enoch walked with God, then he vanished because God took him. May he take me. May he take you. Moses, the Assumption of Moses. Now, you might want to fight me on this one all you like, but here is Deuteronomy chapter 34, and it's titled The Death of Moses. Then leaving the plains of Moab, Moses went up Mount Nebo. And the Lord, Yahweh, the I Am, showed him the whole land. He's looking at it from a distance. He showed him the whole land, the promised land. Yahweh said to him, "This is the land I swore to give to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, saying, I will give it to your descendants. I have let you see it with your own eyes, but you shall not cross into it." Now, do you find that interesting? Moses, who led the 12 tribes out of Egypt to the promised land, never got to the promised land himself. You shall not cross into it. There in the land of Moab, Moses, the servant of Yahweh, died, as the Lord had decreed. He buried him in the valley, in the land of Moab, opposite Bet Peor. He buried him. Who? God buried him. But to this day, no one has ever found his grave. Moses was 120 years old when he died, his eye undimmed, his vigor unimpaired. So why did he die? Anyway, nobody knows where he was buried. Now, where am I getting the assumption out of it? Well, Moses shows up 1,200 years later, and it was on the Mount of Transfiguration. And it was the week before Jesus died on the cross. And Jesus went up on a high mountain, and Moses and Elijah, which we'll talk about later, appeared with him in glory. And they were discussing with Jesus the Passover that he was about to accomplish in Jerusalem within the week. His passing from death to life, his passing from earth to heaven. You'll remember with his last breath how Jesus cried out on the cross, Father, into your hands I commend my spirit. And bowing his sacred head, he died. So Moses was assumed into heaven. Elijah, my man Elijah, this is the book of Kings. It's the second chapter. Elijah is passing on the authority of prophet to Elisha, just like the apostles have passed on the authority of Christ down through the centuries to the priests of the church, to you, the church itself, actually. So Elijah and Elisha are beep-bopping along together, and 50 of the brotherhood of prophets follow them, halting some distance away as the two men stood beside the Jordan. Again, Elijah and Elisha. Elijah took his cloak, rolled it up and struck the water, and the water divided to left and right, and the two of them crossed over dry, shod land. Now, again, the Red Sea was parted. Here we have the River Jordan being parted. When they had crossed, Elijah said to Elisha, make your request. What can I do for you before I am taken from you? Okay, Enoch was taken up. Before I am taken from you. Elisha answered, let me inherit a double share of your spirit. Your request is a difficult one, Elijah said. If you see me while I'm being taken up from you, it shall be as you ask. And if not, it will not be so. Now, as they walked on, talking as they went, a chariot of fire appeared and horses of fire coming between the two of them. And Elijah went up to heaven in the whirlwind. There it is again. Another assumption. So you have Moses and Elijah showing up on the Mount of Transfiguration, discussing with Jesus the Passover he was about to accomplish in Jerusalem. Now, one of the ironies of it all was Jesus was not assumed into heaven. Assumption is something that happens to you. God takes you up, but Jesus ascended into heaven by his own power. And Mother Church testifies that Mary was assumed into heaven. Now, there's one little last detail. You get this in a strange place altogether. There's a letter in the New Testament called the Epistle of Jude. It's about a full page long. So if you ever want to boast that you read a whole book in the Bible, read the Epistle of Jude. Now, listen to this, please, as best you can. Nevertheless, these people are doing the same. people who are delusional, and they mock the gospel and they mock Christ. Nevertheless, these people are doing the same. In their delusions, they not only defile their bodies and disregard authority, but abuse the glorious angels as well. Listen carefully, this is it. Not even the archangel Michael, when he was engaged in argument with the devil about the corpse of Moses. So now maybe you know, go back to Mount Nebo, that God buried Moses on Mount Nebo, and nobody knows to this day where he's buried. But this here gives us a clue that there was the dispute over the body of Moses. Not even the archangel Michael, when he was engaged in an argument with the devil about the corpse of Moses, dared to denounce him in the language of abuse. All he said was, "Let God correct you." But these people abuse anything they do not understand. And the only things they do understand, just by nature, like unreasonable animals, will turn out to be fatal for them. So there it is. It's the assumption. And it's my destiny and yours to be assumed into heaven as well. And you say, you're pushing it, we're going to be assumed into heaven. Well, yeah, go back to John's Gospel, chapter 3, and you'll hear Jesus saying to the 12, do not let your hearts be troubled, and neither let them be afraid. I go to prepare a place for you. Now, I confess I don't know what that means. Is heaven a place? I know it's a person, the person of Christ. I go to prepare a place for you. In my Father's house, there's room for everybody. There's many mansions. There's room for everybody in God. And then he says, I will come back again, and I will take you to myself, so that where I am, you also may be. So we too are assumed into heaven. We're taken up. Jesus comes back and takes us to himself, so that where he is, we also may be. Y'all come back now, you hear? God bless you.